Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a bit of a different video. We're going to be doing who I would keep, loan and sell from Wolverhampton Wanderers via a tier list. So I hope you enjoy this new format and let's get straight into this one. Now as you can see, the tier list is set up and the tiers we've got are keep, loan, unsure and sell. Now the unsure tab is going to be players that I'm very much sort of 50-50 on. Some days I think they should stay, some days I think they should go. Also, that depends on obviously performances in games as well. Like the Lons game, I think players probably, have got a negative outlook, and then maybe the Girona game tonight they play better. But this is basically going to be the tier list. So we're going to start off with Jose Sarr. Now, for this window, I think he's a keep. He's someone I think Wolves should look to improve on in the next 18 to 24 months. But for now, for me, Jose Sarr is a keep, simply because of the other three options. Now, next up, Dan Bentley. I think it's pretty unanimous that he's not good enough for Wolves. Now, obviously they need a backup goalkeeper, but you can do better than Dan Bentley, and there's plenty of free agents in and around the market that you can go and pick up. So for me, it's a sell. Next up, Sam Johnstone. Now, you've got to cut ways with Sam Johnstone, really. Spent £10 million on the bloke, and he just hasn't done absolutely anything of note positive. Anyway, he's done a lot of negative. And ultimately, he's linked away with around £8 million, his move. So if you can get £8 million for Sam Johnstone, having paid 10 for him, it's really not the worst thing in the world, in my personal opinion, to be honest. And I think it's right, and I think it is the right time to let him go. Next up, we've got Tom King. Now, again, Tom King for me, I'm just going to put him in the unsure category because I just don't really understand what the point of Tom King is. I mean, it's the same with third choice goalkeepers in general. Now, that does sound harsh, but for me, it just doesn't make much sense for them to sell a third choice goalkeeper because he's not really going to do much. He's good around the squad. So, yeah, I'll put him in the unsure category. I think that's pretty fair. Now we'll move on to the defence. And first up is Matt Doherty. For me, a no-brainer of a keep. Knows the club inside out. Not on ridiculous wages. Can play really well as that third centre-back, as a right centre-back in a back three. Really played well. Is versatile as well. If you really need him to play the wing-back role this season, which I don't think will be the case, I think he probably can't play that role to an optimal level anymore. But for me, it makes no sense to get rid of Matt Doherty because you're not going to get a stupid fee for him. He knows the club. He loves the fans love him. So I think it makes sense to keep Matt Doherty. Same with Santi Bueno, really. I think he should be one that Wolves look to keep, not because he's necessarily an unbelievable player, but for depth-wise, we don't know how Mosquera is going to react to having such a serious injury when he eventually gets back in the team. There's nothing to say he doesn't get injured again, and just having depth in Santi Bueno, I think is pretty important to keep around the squad. And if you play those cup games, Santi Bueno is not the worst option you can throw in as a centre-half, in my personal opinion. Next up, Agbadou. Do I even need to say anything about Agbadou? Really? He's an absolute joke of a footballer. He is, in my opinion, going to be one of the best defenders in the league this season, and one of the players that I think most of the league will respect generally, because I don't think anyone really spoke about him last season. Obviously only there for really 6 months. And again, outsiders don't really sort of know he even exists, I don't think. But for me, Emmanuel Agbadou is absolutely top, and he is an absolute keep. Then Mosquera, again, pretty straightforward keep. When he can get back in the team and get back fit, I think he's a real crucial asset and will be one of those starting three centre-backs. So for me, Mosquera, again, a keep. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Rodrigo Gomez. For me, he is a keep because of his ability. But in terms of the clear path for him this season, where on earth does he play? As I briefly touched on in my wing-backs video, which you can see here on the left wing-back video anyway, I just think it's such a concerning one because Rodrigo Gomez has a lot to offer, a lot of sides, and I think he'd do really well for a lot of other sides. And there doesn't seem to be a clear plan in place to get the best out of Rodrigo Gomez. He's not going to be starting every week if Muller, Wolfer and another fullback on the right comes in. He is great depth, but as I've said, Bueno's on the left, Herver's on the right, so equally, again, it's interesting. Does Vitor Pereira see him as one of those front three players? I don't think so either, but I'd be tempted to say loan, but I still think he's a keep because he is quality when he does play, really, on the whole. Totti, no-brainer of a keep, in my opinion. The only left-sided centre-back at the club, really. And yeah, he's a no-brainer of a keep. Pedro Lima is a loan for me. I think he is crying out for a loan, personally. I think he needs it, mainly because Keanu Herver's going to be in and around the squad this season. So I think a loan would massively benefit him going out and getting that experience personally. That's how I see it anyway. And for me, it makes a lot of sense for him to get a loan. Whether Wrexham's the right option is another question. But for me, I think he needs a loan because of the options that are in and around the squad. Then we'll move on to Keanu Hervey. For me, keep. I think you're in decent shape if Keanu Hervey is a backup player for you, is a backup fullback. I think you're in really decent shape, and I think allowing him to develop at Wolves, staying in around that squad, and Vitor Pereira clearly likes him, having the way he's spoken about him in pre-season. For me, it is a keep, but again, he could easily be in loan or unsure, but I think he's been on too many loans personally. Now, the divisive one, I mean, let's just put, let's just put Volfer in. It's obviously a keep, isn't it? Let's put him in there. Let's just get that out of the way. Now, this is the divisive one. Hugo Bueno, again, as I've said in recent videos, I think he's definitely, again, really good shape if Hugo Bueno is your backup. For his career, I wouldn't be surprised at putting him in sell, because I think Wolves would get a decent fee and his stock's really high for him currently. But equally, I don't think it makes sense given the fact that there's not, like I say, a clear plan for Rodrigo Gomez yet, whether he'll play that left back, right back slot. So for me, yeah, it makes sense to keep Bueno. Now, let's get into the midfield now. I've just realised some of these aren't in order, so, we will make do with what we've got. Now, in terms of midfield, as you can see here, I think it makes complete sense to keep Manetzi. I think that is pretty straightforward. To be honest, I think we may as well just quickly jump through Andre and Joao Gomez are absolute no-brainer keeps as well. Them three, I mean, there's only really 4 midfield options, as you'll see in this video. You class Torreira as one as well, I suppose, but there's only really 4 midfield options, and actually, I think they're all a keep, to be honest with you, because simply there's not enough depth in that position, in my personal opinion, and I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to keep all 4 of them. Now, that was quite a quick sort of process, but I do think, again, it makes a lot of sense to keep all 4 of them. I don't see why Wolves would let go of any of them, definitely not willingly, especially with Andre and Joao Gomez, but yeah, they're no-brainer keeps for me. Tawanda Chirewa, for me, is another loan. He was okay on loan. He was relatively decent on loan last season at Huddersfield, but for me, I think it makes complete sense for him to go on another loan. I don't think he's quite ready, and I think we've seen that in pre-season as well. I don't think there's really, again, a clear plan for him, really, in Vitor Pereira's mind at the moment. So for me, I think a loan makes complete sense for Tawanda Chirewa. Now, we're into the forwards. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. I mean, I suppose you could class Fer Lopez as a midfielder as well, but we're going to class him as a forward in this one because Wolves play him as a 10. Now, the forwards is where it gets interesting. Let's just go straight forward. The easy one out the way, Jorgen Strand Larsen keep. Outrageous. Now, obviously, if Wolves can get 70 to 75 million, I did see Dave discussing it on a recent podcast saying it's not a bad fee if you can get it for him, but equally, I don't think he should go. Not this season anyway. A definite keep. I think he's nailed on to get 15, 16 goals at least next season in the Premier League, and he just makes complete sense. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Hwang. For me, Hwang's the one that divides opinion for me. I think he's a massive confidence player, and I don't think he's necessarily unbelievably good enough for Wolves. I'm going to put unsure at the moment just because we don't know who is leaving out of that forward line. Because, like I say, there's 4 forwards in and around there. Kalajdzic, Fabio Silva, Hwang, and, of course, Gonzalo Guedes. So there's those 4, and I think probably 2 or 3 could leave. So I'm going to put him in unsure at the moment until we know further who is going to leave. And yeah, I just think that's probably fair. For me, I'd probably keep Kalajdzic around, mainly because I have a bit of sympathy for him in terms of he's had 3 ACL injuries in 5 years. And yeah, that does seem like he's injury prone, but they are freak injuries that players just don't regularly pick up, especially not as regularly as Sasa. So for me, I think I'd probably put him in keep, just because I think it's handy to keep him around the squad. And then I think for me, obviously, Jean Arias is obviously a keep. I mean, Wolves are never going to get rid of Jean Arias, are they? And let's do the same with Fer Lopez as well. That is an obvious keep. Now, we're into the final 4 players, and some of these are very divisive. I think probably all of them you could argue. For me, Matheus Mane is a keep. I think keeping him around the squad this season, I wouldn't loan him out personally. I think keeping him around the squad would make a massive impact on his career. I think it'd be great to see him in and around the first team. I think he's really, really talented. So for me, again, a definite keep in that Wolves lineup, really. Enzo Gonzalez for me is a loan. I think he needs a loan. Obviously, a massive injury again. And I think for him, it makes sense to go out on loan. Where he goes out on loan, I'm not too sure. Maybe somewhere that gets the best out of him technically, somewhere, Portugal or Spain or something like that. I could see him in the Netherlands as well, to be fair. But I think somewhere maybe where he speaks sort of, the language better. So the likes of Spain, I think he would really suit. So for me, I think Enzo Gonzalez probably is a loan for now, to be honest. Now, we're into the final 2. Probably the most divisive 2 out of all of them in this sort of video, really. Fabio Silva, I'm going to go sell. I think based on loan fees that Wolves have received for him, based on his stock being high currently, having come off the back of his best season in professional football, based on the fact that he doesn't really want to be at Wolves and never really has wanted to be at Wolves that much, really, I think Fabio Silva is a sell. I think it's the right time for both the club and him to go, and I think it will make complete sense because they can get a decent fee for him and ultimately probably break even, potentially make profit after the loan fees and the permanent fee. I think they can get 15 to 20 for Fabio. So for me, I think that makes sense. And finally, Gonzalo Guedes. For me, I know a lot of people like Guedes and have liked his attitude in pre-season and he seems happier than he has previously at Wolves. But for me, I'd sell him personally. I think again you can get an okay fee for him, and I do think he's one of them again that he's never really wanted to be at Wolves. On 90 grand a week, I think it's nearly 4.7 million net per year in terms of wages. So it's a hefty sort of wage for him. I think he might even be the highest earner at the club, or definitely one of them as well. So for me, Gonzalo Guedes makes complete sense to get rid of. Now, let me know your opinions. Let me know if there's any you change. I'm sure there will be. There's a few players that people don't often agree with me on as well. So I think Pedro Lima is definitely one of them. People don't tend to agree with my opinions on him all of the time, but I do think a lot of them are pretty straightforward. Like I say, some of them will be improved, and say the wing back options improved on the right, and Vitor Pereira comes out and says Rodrigo, is currently my first choice fullback, even though it clearly isn't at the moment with Herver. But say he just did that, and all of a sudden Rodrigo Gomez is his first choice, and then Wolves bring someone in, and Rodrigo's his second choice. That gives you license to move Herver on or move Rodrigo on. So again, I think it's really interesting. There's a few players that, like I say, I was very unsure about. As you can see there's not too many, but I think Tom King and Hwang are two of them. Hwang for a few reasons, as I said. I think they should have cashed in on him when they got £20 million offered to them for him last summer from Marseille. But again, it's a really tough one. So let me know what you think, Wolves fans. And also, like I say, it's like this is my opinion. So if you don't agree with me, I'm not overly offended at it, to be quite honest with you. Now, if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like it. Comment below your thoughts on my sort of keep, loan, sell, unsure categories as well. And if there's any more tier lists you'd like to see, let me know what you want to see in the comments as well, because I think they're really exciting to do, and they're quite fun videos, quite playful videos, and something different that I've not really done on this channel other than once before with Liverpool. Now, if you did enjoy it, like I say, please like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel, because we're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers before the start of the Premier League season. We have just under 2 weeks to do it. I'm not sure it's going to be possible because there is a lot of stuff going on, and there are a lot bigger channels than mine. But if you could, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.